Let's
My
let's
side
start
is
it again. Let's start it again.
Okay. I would like to call to order this meeting of the Isla Vista Community Services District Board on October 8th, 2024, and announce that the meeting is being recorded. Jonathan, can we have a roll call?
Director Topliff,
Here.
Brandt,
Here.
Freeman,
Here.
Deschler,
Here. Oh,
and Director Deschler, if you can just announce the general reason, I think medical reason, and if there's anybody with you over 18.
So I am, hi, this is Kirsten Deschler, and I am on Zoom tonight for, because I don't want to get you all sick, and there's no one else in the area of me.
it looks like you're in a flower field. Good to see you.
Scarecrows.
Director Schultz.
Here. Okay, before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place, Anascoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. So I'll now move to the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments?
I would like to pull 2.3 for discussion, please.
Okay. Shall we go ahead and go ahead?
I'd like to pull 2.5.
Okay, so we're pulling 2.3 and 2.5. Shall we move approval of 2.1, 2.2, and 2.4?
So moved.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Okay. Motion was made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, I guess we need a roll call because Kirsten's not here.
We do need a roll.
Okay. Roll call it, please. Jonathan?
Director Topliff,
Yeah, aye.
Brandt,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Deschler,
Yes.
Schultz.
Hi.
The motion passes. 5.
It is
502.
5-0. Yes, 5-0.
Thank you. Thank God you got here, Marcus. I'm having trouble with math. So we had a request from Director Deschler to pull item 2.3 on the consent agenda, and from Director Brandt for 2.5. So Director Deschler.
Yes, I asked to pull 2.3 because I thought it would be helpful for the general manager to give an overview of this recommendation that he's making for personnel readjustments.
Yes, no, more than happy to do that. So we have an employee on leave for the period listed on here, and in an effort to be able to fill in some of the work that needs to be done in the area with the compost collective, I'm recommending that we do an interim appointment of Jenna Norden to be our interim public works and sustainability director. So that role would oversee the compost collective, Ivy Beautiful, and other programs that are operating right now that normally were being managed directly by myself and our assistant general manager, and had a program manager over them that was doing the direct work. So it's a temporary appointment. It's for 2 months. We'll try it out, see how it works, and I can show you the reorganized org chart, and this is what it's going to look like now in this area. So I don't have a before and after to show you. I can link that before at another time, but this is how the public works area would look now with the interim director and then the different programs that she would supervise. It's a similar concept to what we did in the community programs and engagement area, and the district would still save money on this temporary reorganization between salaries not paid and interim salaries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And should we go ahead to 2.5?
Do we need a motion to approve this?
Yes, you would need a motion, but first we need public comment and then discussion by the board.
Okay, you're specifically on the interim appointment.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you. Is there any board commentary right now on this item?
I'd just like to say that Jenna has done such a magnificent job for us in everything that she's ever done. And so thank you for agreeing to accept this new role on a temporary basis. And I'm very confident that that will continue.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make a comment. I echo what Carrie said. I'm really pleased, Jonathan, that you've kind of looked at the organization needs, given that we have an employee on leave. And I think Jenna is just a perfect individual in this interim position. She's just done a phenomenal job for the district. And I just wait to see, even in 2 months, how much more she's going to achieve in this role. So I look forward to watching her grow as an employee and seeing her contributions to the district. So I appreciate that you've made this happen today.
Thank you, Kirsten.
All right, I'll ask if there's any public comment on this item. Yes.
So I've always said before that the closest thing to public works that we have for this district is Ivy Beautiful under Jenna Norton. And Jenna has done more than an outstanding job. Community members like myself, we stand behind her and her efforts. And, you know, whatever help you need from me going forward on anything, you know that you can always reach out to me. The job you've done has been nothing less than phenomenal. I've seen the changes you've made. They benefit the community, they benefit the district, everything. So, you know, it's a money saving move too. It's good to be a little frugal with cash, especially in these days. So it's a good thing that I'm totally honored to have you serving in that role. I really appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'd just like to also add that I'm glad you're stepping up, because dealing with in public works, so much of the job is dealing with the public, and I've just seen how you even today handled that really well. And so that bodes well for this organization, just to have somebody who's, you know, helping people kind of get their questions answered or deal with their complaints.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, there's no more public comment. I'll hear if there's a motion on this particular item.
I'll move to approve.
Oh, second.
All right, we have the motion by Topliff and the second by Brandt. Is there any public comment on this motion? I see no public comment on this motion, so I'll ask for a vote. Or we have to do roll call. Okay. I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Topliff,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Deschler,
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
All right, this motion passes 7-3-0. Now, Director Brandt, which item were you asking to look at? 2.5.
Yes, thanks. I pulled this just to highlight this. We had a little bit of cost savings due to the fact that we won't have board members on the ballot this year. And so we're reallocating this funding to a Halloween night market this year. And I just wanted to hear if staff could provide a brief update of what is going on with that.
For sure. So yes, we did save $7,000 on our election not being on the ballot. We already spent $2,200 of that to upgrade this building's Wi-Fi infrastructure. So that's moving ahead. All the tenants, I think, are going to be pretty happy. But we do have $4,800 left over to spend. And we're going to use a portion of that, not all of it, but a portion of that to co-host a Halloween night market with different local organizations like the Fashion Club. And I think I misspoke in writing this Halloween night market because I'm not the person planning this event. It's a Day of the Dead Arts Festival night market where people have a chance to buy a Halloween costume from vendors there, a sustainable one that you don't have to buy new. So I misspoke on writing it that way, but it is a nightlife event on October 19th for the community to enjoy.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you for the update. I'm just my kudos to Maya and the community center team for working on this and more awesome nightlife programming that we've got going on. So I'll move approval of this.
I'll second.
All right, we have the motion by Brant and a second by Topliff. Is there any board comment on this motion? I see none. Is there any public comment on this motion? I see none. May I have a roll call vote on this motion?
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Topliff,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Schulz,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Deschler,
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes. All right, thank you. That motion passes 7-0-0-0. Thank you everyone for bearing with my tardiness. We'll now move on to the public comment period. At this time, any member of the public may speak on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board of directors that are not on the agenda. The board will not take action on any item not on the agenda except as provided by law. Is there any public comment at this time? Yes.
So, I drive a 1993 Honda Civic SI. Yeah, it's a little bit of a race car. And my wife Kim drives a 1995 Honda Del Sol. What do those two cars have in common? They're very low to the ground. With that said, what does this have to do with anything? So as you're going down in Barcadero del Norte and you get to El Colegio or Barcadero del Mar, there's a safety concern, especially for lower profile vehicles, and that is the bushes on the corner. It's on the southwest corner of Embarcadero del Norte, and the bushes on the southwest corner of Embarcadero del Mar and El Colegio. And those bushes impede the view of oncoming traffic going from west to east. So I think what I'm trying to say is that these bushes are kind of like a vision block. And maybe this is something the county may need to mitigate on a public safety manner or issue. It's led to a few close calls I've seen that even in high profile vehicles, there's still a little bit of visibility, lacking visibility there. So just something I want to let you all know about if you haven't seen it. And I don't drive that much. I only drive like maybe once a week or twice a week, but it's definitely, and the things, the only time it really affects you is not when the light, if you're turning left, it's not an issue because you have to wait for the light. But if you're turning right on one of those streets that go onto campus, go west to east, yeah, then it becomes an issue. People have to go onto the crosswalk and kind of like look over, you have to do the giraffe to see if there's any oncoming traffic. So something I just, if you all want to take a look at it sometime, and if you want to contact me to go out there with you, I'd be more than happy to point this issue out. But it's definitely a safety issue with traffic.
We'll follow up.
All right, thank you for that public comment. Is there any other public comment at this time? All right, I see none. So I'll move on to our discussion action items. We have item 4.1, draft mobility plan and parking action plan.
Okay, well, we are not going into it today on these plans. They're the intention of having these two draft plans on our agenda today is to provide an opener for the public to see the draft recommendations, the draft work that's out there, and provide for a 1-month comment period before we come back to the board on November 12th to get final approval on them. So both plans are attached here. We're having a little trouble with the mobility plan with the images and the size of the file and getting that in there correctly. So we will, there is a draft and outline in there, but we'll get the final version up soon. But the parking study has the 3 chapters of the report and all the backup data, the survey results on the street, the occupancy rate data, the turnover rates. So you can dig into that. The public can dig into all of that and see what the work has gone into all this for the last 2 to 3 years. And we'll be accepting feedback on a form on our website until November 1st. And then we'll make revisions and have our come to the board on November 12th. So we are pretty excited. We're in the last stretch of it. Our consultants have done a good job sticking to this timeline to get it approved this fall. And we're in the final stretch.
All right, thank you. Is there any brief board comment on this item? Yes, Director Deschler.
Yeah, I was interested to know what type of community engagement will around this will happen in terms of announcing the 1 month comment period. And will there be like proactive engagement with the people that have provided input along the way, our various constituencies in town and out of the community?
Yeah, so there's gonna be a lot done. Sydney, do you wanna go
Yeah.
over it?
Happy to share. So we are doing an extensive, like, final push for outreach. We have a really comprehensive listserv from everyone that's attended a focus group, a town hall meeting, different tabling events, just all throughout the last 2 years. I actually made, I'll share it with you all, but a really cool timeline of all that we've accomplished since the start of this project. And so, yes, we have all of that. I'll be doing personal emails to those individuals. We'll do a constant contact and Instagram and updating our websites. And then it'll be translated and available in Spanish, both the information as well as the feedback form. So we're hoping that different groups will share that. So I'll reach out to those partners and have them share to their individual networks as well.
Sydney, will you also be doing any press around this, like press release? At this
Yes,
point?
definitely.
Okay, cool.
All right. Any other board members? Yes.
Well, I was just excited to see it.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming,
Right.
and we've certainly had a little bit of challenge along the way, and it just seems like they've done really a good job. So it was fun to see everything compiled in one place and organized so well.
They've done a good job for
Yeah.
sure.
I was very pleased.
Yes, Director Brand.
Yeah, just wanted to say a thank you to you, Director Aguilar and Freeman, for your work on the parking committee, getting this across the finish line. And we know we're not quite there yet because now is the time where now we've done our due diligence and we want to hear from the public. So I really hope that we can use these 30 days to really gather as much feedback as possible. I think that even the comment that you just made, Henry, about daylighting is something that is even contemplated in here of how to make sure that there are clear sight lines for vehicles so they can see pedestrians. So this plan is really like gargantuan because it touches on just about every single thing that's transportation related in Isla Vista. It's a massive undertaking, and it will be a massive undertaking for all of us to be able to sift through all the different details as well as the public. So I'm just really happy that we have this process that allows for 30 days for people to review it and provide us with feedback and comments. So looking forward to doing that.
Thank you. All right, is there any public comment at this time on this item? I see none.
I think we might have one person.
Okay.
Yeah, we have one person.
Okay, may the person on Zoom please speak and share us your name.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Vuksovich. I'm an alumni of UC Santa Barbara and Director of State Policy for an organization called Streets for All. I just wanted to share, and apologies that I did not prepare my notes particularly well for this meeting because I'm on the East Coast at the moment, that I really thought this was a tremendous study, the Isla Vista Mobility Plan. I candidly gave an overview of it a few days ago with some level of skepticism. And I was really, really excited by everything I saw in the document. And so I'm hoping to provide some detailed notes and recommendations in the coming 30 days to the board. But I just want to really give props to the consultants who created this. And I guess if I could only leave like one piece of specific feedback, I would say specifically thinking about continued transit priority access on El Colegio would be the thing that I would say. While they were touched on a little bit within the recommendations of the document, I would say could be expanded further and I think should be seen as a priority recommendation for mobility within people in Isla Vista. Otherwise, though, for not being as prepared as I would have liked, I just want to say tremendous job to both the IVCSD board in directing this process and the consultant for creating a document that is tailored to its community.
I just want to clarify, I said 30 days, maybe a month. It's like 22 days, but
Got it.
well, there will be 30 days until the next board meeting. So
Yes.
people could still contact you directly too on their fees. But to incorporate the feedback, we have a little less time.
Thank you for that clarification. I see no further public comment at this time. So I will close this item. Look forward to hearing from everyone in the community and move on to item 4.2, 2026 facilities bond. I believe Director Brandt, you have some leading on this item.
Yes, thank you, Director Aguilar. I asked for this item to be on the agenda just because I have been aware for a while when I was president. We did this engineering assessment of the buildings, and there is great need that we know of in the Isla Vista Community Center and the Community Resources Building. And I know that at the same time, we have also been discussing the growing and emerging needs of some of our programs, like the Compost Collective when it comes to storage, and of community gardens and the needs that are associated with them, whether it comes to the garden that's contemplated next door that we don't have funding identified for, or the more grand vision for that space that incorporates the ADA improvements. And so I wanted to put this item on the agenda for us to have discussion whether we should direct staff to look more into the mechanics of how that would get done. I don't think that it's worth having a detailed discussion right now about what would be contemplated, but it does seem to me like this is a tool in our toolbox that would be helpful for us to have given staff authorization to look into. Is this something that we can do? How would it be accomplished? How does the financing work? I think those are all questions that are up in the air and something that is worth us exploring more. So that's why I asked for this item to be on the agenda.
All right, thank you for that update. Any directors, any questions at this time or comments at this time?
Well, I appreciate that you're bringing this forward because obviously it's something like this is going to need a long lead time. But also given the busyness of our staff right now, do you have a sense about when they need to start doing this research?
Well, in my mind, I know it's on the agenda as 2026. And I guess that just came to my mind because a lot of our other schools and community colleges are doing general obligation bonds in the general election. So it seems like that potentially is the deadline if we wanted to move more quickly. But I think the reason why I think it needs staff authorization is because I think we don't know, right, what all this would entail. Is that correct?
Yeah, there'd be a lot of work that goes into it from me or from Jamie as well. And so we don't want to work on anything if the board doesn't want to do it.
Yes, Director Freeman.
I think one key question that we have to look at is the extent to which, if we're going to have a bond of the people in the area in order to pour a bunch of money into the buildings, whether we'd actually be allowed to do that, and then what it would mean for us to be doing that when we don't currently own the buildings. So.
All right. If there's no current board comment or questions, I'll open this item up to the public.
You've forgotten me. You've forgotten me.
Oh, okay.
My hand
I
was
didn't
up.
see your hand raised. Director Dessler, please share with us.
I just wanted to, first of all, Spencer, I love your brain. I love how you think. I love how you're proactive. You're thinking ahead. I love your creativity. This is a really interesting question. And I definitely think it's worth getting some staff input and maybe legal input. I guess when I first saw this, my thought was, it's kind of like, you know, when you're renting a house, how much work do you put into something you don't own? And so that's more maybe a different type of question, but I guess it would be helpful to know, can the district put in funds to put in public funds into a building that is not owned by the district? And is that a good use of public dollars to put in funds and into buildings that are not currently owned by the redevelopment agency, successor agency, is my understanding. So again, I think it's worth asking those questions, but I love the idea of the community of Isla Vista taking ownership and responsibility for community facilities. So thank you, Spencer.
Yeah, and also I don't know the answer to any of those questions either, which is why I asked for this item to be on the agenda. Because I think those are good questions that we don't know.
All right. Now I will ask if there's any public comment on this item. Yes.
From experience, I will say you'll have to contact a property lawyer, attorney that can verify how much money you could use in terms of public funds on a piece of private property. A property attorney will be able to answer those questions. I don't know of any because I'm a renter. I don't own any property. So, but they are out there, and with legal counsel present, you can ask, they can actually present questions for you to answer, and then they will give you answers to those questions that you'll have. So I'd say contact a property attorney and see what can be, because Director Dreschler and Director Freeman bring up great points. You have a building you're renting, how much money can you spend on in terms of public funds? And that's a very, it's a touchy issue. If I were an attorney, I wouldn't want to touch it, but property attorneys are great at that. So I suggest, bringing somebody on that can work with your legal counsel and the board and staff and come up with something.
All right. Not see any further public comments. I'll return to the board if there's any further board discussion on this item, or if there's a motion on direction.
I'd like to move that we explore this idea, but at leisure or relative leisure.
I'll second.
Okay, we have the motion by Topliff and the second by Schultz. Is there any public comment on this motion? I see none.
Can the board make
Yeah,
any more comments?
Yes, you may. I keep not seeing your hand, so please join in with comment.
I'm never going to be sick again for one of these meetings. I feel so hamstrung. No, I just want to say I just wanted to emphasize, I definitely appreciate that that Spencer is bringing this up. I do support moving forward. I think it's worth asking these questions. And Isla Vista is such we deal with this all the time. We have so many overlapping jurisdictions, right, between the county and the university and private property and IVRPD and the IVCSD. And I just love that we're looking at ways that the IVCSD can be a contributor to the community in a very positive way that really shows the district's stake in the community, and it feels a very responsible thing to do. So I'm excited by it, and I just wanted to say that.
All right, thank you for those comments. May I now have a roll call vote on this motion?
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Dr. Topliff,
Yes.
Dr. Brandt,
Yes.
Dr. Freeman,
Yes.
Dr. Craig,
Yes.
Dr. Deschler,
Yes.
Dr. Schultz.
Yes.
All right, this motion passes 7-0-0-0. Now we move on to item 4.3, Supervisor Capps update on the 8-point plan for bluff safety.
Great, thank you. And I just want to start off by thanking Eleanor Gardner. I know you all work with her a lot, but she's been a great partner in this work. So this is definitely not me on the agenda here, but us. And so pipe in when I forgot stuff. And I don't want to belabor this. I feel like you all live and breathe bluff safety. So I'll go through each point, but I'm going to do it pretty quickly because I feel like this is your work that we've just been working with you much less time that you've all been doing it. We just did a press briefing with the Independent News Hawk in front of the first private property that has actually raised their fence up to 6 feet. Richard West is the building manager for Utopia. And we were out there just show the visual to the reporters, and hopefully you'll see stories about that and it's really part of a ongoing strategy to a variety of different means to get all of the property owners to do the right thing and raise their fence heights. We're paying for their permit. We're using every lever we can think of. Happy to have other ideas in the works as how we get all of them up to 6 feet. That would be my dream for this school year, is getting them. 8 more are in process through the county permitting. So we're getting there. But if you had asked me a year ago, would it take over a year to get property owners to raise their fence heights, I would not have thought it would be this challenging. So that's really I lead with that because, again, that came from all of you with this 8-point plan, that raising fence heights is probably the first point for a reason, because it'll probably have the biggest impact, as Spencer said so eloquently after Benny Shermer died. It's not just one thing, it's all of these things together, and we don't know which will actually prevent. We have no idea what we've done already that might have prevented fatalities this last year. We know that falls happen all the time. We don't know which ones we've prevented. We'll never know, but we just keep doing it. Along with the fence heights is patio safety and balcony safety. And Eleanor has a letter, but I just wanted to make sure you understand that our planning and development department, under the direction of Lisa Plowman, I have to say they're really motivated to do things. And so they've brought ideas to us, one of which would be measuring after all of these atmospheric rivers that we experienced last winter, measuring, now requiring the bluff properties to measure twice a year to see what kind of erosion has happened. And again, that's just a change. It didn't take board action. It's just a change in the code. And so that letter just went out to remind them all that this is a requirement. And so a reporter asked today, will those measurements be public? We're going to double check on that, but I certainly hope so. They should be. So that's yet another accountability to show, okay, you have purchased a property where you are charging a fair amount of rent for tenants to live that's on a rapidly eroding bluff. So that's really the point number 1 on fence heights. I guess I didn't realize we have this slide here. So
yeah, Jonathan, can we advance?
Oh yeah, and you all know, again, I kind of zoom past the things that you all live and breathe and drive by and walk by and skate by every day. So I don't need to go into the 14 lives lost. Although I do remain in a constant vigilant fear of another call from either Scott Safechuck or Tesla. That's usually how we hear of another fall. And I'll just share on a personal note, when Jake Parker died in April, I know you all felt the sadness of that. It was really brought to us in a very visceral way, because the very next day we were in our office walking down, Chris and I were walking down to get coffee or something, and incoming through the door were some people asking for me. Didn't know who they were, so we stopped, and it was his parents and his aunt who had flown in, his dad from the Bay Area and his mom and her sister from Connecticut, and they were just white as ghosts, as you would be, and in complete shock. And they said to me, we didn't know where to go, so we came here and we sat with them in our office. it was probably 45 minutes, but it felt like 45 hours because of their just sheer grief in action. So even though I'm zooming past these points very quickly, that doesn't reflect a lack of emotion that still carries this work, regardless of the time and the year that has passed since I really picked up and joined you all in this crusade to make the bluff safer. Okay, so I'll just go quickly through it and then feel free to ask questions if there's something that needs clarifying. But really, that we already just touched on the one where there's been sort of more recent progress. And feel free when there's photos of the one that the Utopia property that we were just at, if it's in News Hawk and Independent, of sharing it, because again, we're just trying to incentivize others to come on board. I think you've seen the signs. I know the lights have up. Has anyone seen the county lights? Okay, because we keep coming out, but we miss it, the timing. So we need to see that, and John Palmentary wants to see it. And then bathrooms, I think you have the latest, but the permanent bathroom was part of the settlement with the university. And I'm very excited about that. It'll be at a county park. We should get back to you on timing and updates, but that's in the works. You all are working on, obviously, education every day. And then the memorial, I know that that's now with you all and us too, and working specifically with a few of the moms who have opinions about what this should look like, rightly so. And then enforcement, we just talked about this with Lieutenant Tesla and his colleagues. I want to give a heartfelt gratitude for the work that this body did for a long time to come up with the social host ordinance. It was controversial, it was challenging, it was not easy, not a clear thing where that you would start off some endeavor like that and think that you would end up where we are, which is, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but relatively quiet, both in terms of parties ending earlier, but also in terms of the controversy. And again, you would know best, particularly those of you who live here. But we've just heard anecdotally from folks that we've talked to on Del Playa that parties are ending earlier and the paid parties are virtually gone, knock on wood. And again, just that's a major accomplishment. Again, I don't know if we sitting in this room when this was being hashed out, if you would have thought, okay, next fall we'll be sort of talking about how relatively calm things have been on that with these new ordinances. So good job to everybody.
And just one other thing on education, we've been working closely with UCSD on their Gaucho FYI orientation and really stepped up that piece and around bluff safety, including a video from Heather Alibrando, Chasen's mom. And we're doing something similar with City College as well. We were pleased to learn that City College launched a new student portal in August, which will be just a great landing place. And I know Jordan worked with IVCSD to really build out the Isla Vista safety resources. So just thank you again for the partnership and ongoing collaboration.
Yeah, and we want to get a copy of that video that Heather did for Gaucho FYI, and I believe it went out to parents for orientation, which that was an idea that came from one of Kirsten's colleagues. Who's it, Kim?
Kim Ekanoya.
Yeah, because just the parent-to-parent communication was something we hadn't really tapped into, and I think that there could be more potential there. So if you have ideas on that front, please let us know, or you can obviously talk to Kim or Kirsten, just because, again, I think that could be really powerful. I know there's not a ton of interaction that way, but we could facilitate that.
The next slide.
Yeah. Okay, we did that already. And so, yeah, I got ahead of myself. But there is this law that bill rather, 721, which is a balcony inspection law that we're tracking. And that the requiring balconies of multifamily buildings with 3 units on a single lot to be inspected. So we're tracking that legislation, and we'll report back if that gets put into law.
And the last thing on just additional enhancements, planning and development of the county has a pre-approved design fence that private property owners can now utilize. So again, it's just another tool that we're hoping streamlines the process and encourages property owners to take advantage of. And so all of those 3 points are included in this letter that planning and development just sent out to all the property owners just a couple of weeks ago.
And what that means is just so that property owners wouldn't have to hire an architect, that these plans are pre-approved from the counties, just again, trying to streamline every which way we can so that property owners do the right thing.
Next slide, please.
And then, you know, I'll speak to any group, coming back to the property owners meeting on October 17th. Again, you know, the press has been really helpful. They are very interested in bluff safety. We've heard just again anecdotally of parents reading about a property because it's in the news about, you know, the bluff falling into the ocean, and then, you know, just making decisions on behalf of the safety of their students. So we're trying to really shine a bright light. And it goes without saying that the most challenging piece of this, you all won't be surprised of any, that has been the property owners. Just I would have thought that they would have, you know, many more would have jumped in to just after these tragedies and to make their balconies as safe as possible. But it's been a variety of things. Some, you know, flat out refusals, some mostly though, I have to say, is just a lot of kind of getting the runaround, as you have experienced probably in other ways, where you talk to one person and they say to talk to this manager, and this, you know, just it just reveals how much, I'll just be blunt, how much money is involved in these properties with all these different management companies and not necessarily local, and trying to deal with the layers of bureaucracy there. So, okay, we can keep going. Okay, then I know that this is really what you all wanted us to focus on, because this is more current.
Oh, can
I
I?
think we're gonna
Yeah.
come back.
Oh, we're gonna
We're
come
not
back.
later
agendized
date.
for this.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but just because of its relation to bluff safety in general, we just wanted to highlight the
Oh,
list of these
okay.
projects. But Director Aguilar, I know you invited us back at a future meeting
Yeah.
date to go more into detail.
Exactly.
And it all fits together.
Yeah.
In my mind, in our minds. So. Well, thank you. And again, I just love being your partner. I tell people all the time. Now I've been in this job almost 2 years, 2 years in December, and so 22 months. And it's an honor to represent UCSB. It's an honor to be your partner here in Isla Vista. I love also having City College, the synergy there, the next generation, and we will always have an open door. Always try to facilitate more support, more advocacy. Always at a minimum, I do communications for a living. So if you're not aware of something, that is on us, and make sure that we are doing our job of making sure that you understand what the county's up to. And we are here to answer questions both tonight, but every day. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that report and update. Is there any board question at this time? Director Brand.
Well, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate in your communications expertise that you've helped our press focus on the positive too, because I think a lot of us have felt like the positive things, like getting that first fence installed, are not always the things that are covered. A lot of times it's when things go wrong only, right?
Yeah.
And so getting to go out there with you today and see the pre-approved fence plan, number one, it is good looking. And in fact, it was remarked by a couple of people on how good the fence looked. And it definitely is something that will do its job. So I think that it's really cool that we're able to highlight that.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciate your tenacity at following up with these property owners to try to continue to hold their feet to the fire and help them better understand how this is a good investment for their property. Safety is always a good investment. And so I've just been really happy to be able to have a good day and highlight a good thing today.
Thanks, Spencer.
Yeah.
That's great. Cool. And it was pretty nice to know that the property manager there is also in his day job a firefighter. So, you know, it's I think those things probably go together. That he was the first to get on it. So yeah. Cool.
I'll quickly ask before I go to the public, Director Deschler, do you have any comments? I've missed you so many times already. I want to
Her
invite
hand
you.
is up. Her hand is up.
Okay, I can't see from here.
You know,
that
it's
the
hard to
Zoom-
see the little hand. Yeah.
Okay,
I did want to make a comment. Is this the comment time or is this the question time? I have comments.
please go ahead and comment.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I want to just really say, to Supervisor Capps, it is just really phenomenal, how much work that you have done and your staff has done, working with the community to get as much done as you have, and just really move people and processes forward that have just not happened, right? And it makes me realize that we hear that term, you know, that sometimes like out of tragedy, things happen that are just absolutely okay, and you can make sense of it. And I don't know if we'll ever make sense of the young people that have died in our community, but it is so phenomenal to me, having, you know, worked at UCSB for many years and been part of the IV community in that way, to really see how it takes a committed group of people led by a very enthusiastic individual to make change. And there's been a lot of people that have attempted to make kind of these changes and make this area safer, and you've really done it. And I just appreciate your dedication and your enthusiasm and your stubbornness and kind of relentless work to really make things right, and to really put yourself, you know, in front of interests that are, you know, powerful interests that maybe have different interests than you do sometimes. And I just really appreciate all that you've done, all that your staff has done. And I just love that this has become a real community effort of involving the IVCSD, IV Foot Patrol, IVRPD. And so that's all. I wish I was in person, but I do want to just really let you know, I just appreciate all that you've done and really bringing all the community together and galvanizing support. And I say that on behalf of my role on IVCSD, but also my role with the university.
Thank you. That's great. And I'll just say, in response, you know, the tenant workshop that we did was awesome. So if there's interest to do that again, I mean, the things that we partnered on were great. And also just help keep the drumbeat going. For tenants to know their rights and to know that they can fill out a notice of violation. We want to make sure you all are aware of that too in your conversations, and we can send you the link if you don't have it at the ready. But also too, then handing out Narcan, that was another awesome day. So, you know, this is my second school year with you all. So I'm looking forward to repeating some of the things that I thought were really impactful in partnership and then adding to them. So let's do more and more and more.
All right. Now we'll go to the public. If there's any public comment or question on this update? Yes, sir, if you were first.
I would expect the fencing would have serious insurance effect for owner liability insurance. Is that hammered on their consciousness too? So you're going to help yourself if you help the fence.
Yeah, that's a good point. We are not privy to insurance policies for those properties. I don't know how they are insured, but clearly they are. But you're right. It's a no-brainer in terms of safety enhancements being cost effective in the long run.
You would suspect that you'd be interested in finding out who the insurers are, so you could provide some information about how many people soon after going over.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Ash?
Sure, yeah, I can go. Ash, I'm part of the Parks Board. They didn't like send me to represent them today. I just came in my own capacity. But I do have a lot of information that I learned at our last board meeting I wanted to relay. If you go to our agenda packet from 10/03/24 on the Parks Department website, you'll find a really fancy report about the bluffs.
Oh, yeah.
We had a
Great.
geological survey company like do a really detailed report over 2 years.
Great.
And I suggest you all check it out. It has information about the geology. It really focused on the 3 parks that IVRPD actually owns, which are Rodapel, Window to the Sea, and Camino Pescadero. But a lot of the information is like relevant to all of Isla Vista's geology. And when he came to our meeting, one thing he really emphasized was water. He was like, get a handle on how the water is gonna flow in a storm. Like, don't have the land shaped in a way where it's gonna like sit on the edge or like slope down and like come all at once down the side, because that kind of stuff weakens it like a lot. So yeah, a few things to think about. I would highly recommend checking that report out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, yes.
I happened to be at the meeting, the WRPD meeting with the geologist that showed up, and his report was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, as an engineer, I was like, he and I were talking afterwards and said, one engineer to another, you nailed it. But we brought in engineering experts, geological experts, we brought in structural experts, we brought in climate change experts to discuss this topic of people falling off the cliffs. But the one topic that still isn't discussed, and is people jumping fences. And there was something that the engineer at the meeting last week, at the IVRPD meeting, pointed out. He was asked a question about, how do we keep setting back the fence? How do we keep setting back the fence? And he goes, well, we can set it back as far as we want, but if you set it back too far, there'll be a space open, people put couches over to watch the sunset. And he goes, I can't answer that. I'm not a psychologist. So like I said, we've had experts in geology, we've had experts in climate change, weather, we've had experts in geography and everything. But the one thing that's missing is experts in psychology and sociology. We need somebody to address psychological issues involved in jumping a fence. It's an unrelated issue, but related at the same time. The recent damage to one of the porta potties. It was horrible. It's horrendous. They set it on fire. Who does that? A mentally deficient individual, in my humble opinion. What we have is a psychological, social issue. We need to bring in an expert to address those issues. Now, what that expert will be able to do on a mass scale, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a dumb engineer. But, I can tell you how to build a fence. I can tell you where not to build a fence, where to build it. And a lot of this would be based on the data from that great geological report IVRPD got last week. It was fantastic. But even the engineer that was there present said the people jumping the fence, it's not an engineering issue. It's not a weather or climate change issue. It's a psychological issue. He even said it himself. And that kind of struck a bell with me. I think that we're dealing with an issue of behavior and psychology. I don't know how we can address that one. Now, the one thing though, getting those 6-foot fences behind properties, those are harder to scale. Some people will still try it, but those are harder to scale. According to I've quoted my numbers to you guys on this cliff falls. You all know my data that I have. And the one thing this year, we've had 2 cliff falls, one fatal, one not. And they both had one thing in common. The individuals jumped the fence. That eroding cliff due to climate change, yes, it exists. It's there. But there's also a fence before it to prevent you from going into that dangerous terrain. Why do people jump that? The one young lady at 6761 Del Playa, she jumped it to try to sneak into the party. The one gentleman that passed away, they were trying to recreate a picture of them sitting over the ledge over the bluff behind their old apartment. Why do people do that? the psychological issue doesn't just stop at the people jumping fences. It also stops at landlords that don't want to put up a fence. That's a psychological issue. Why don't they want to put up a fence? It has nothing to do with finance. It's something up here. What is it? Why don't they want to put up a fence? So we've covered all the issues, but that's the one issue that remains uncovered, in my humble opinion. So, but I highly recommend, like Director Valenti from IVRPD said, I highly recommend checking out that report. It is fantastic. You will be amazed at the information that that engineering firm gathered. So I highly recommend that.
All right, is there any other public comment or a return to the board? I see none. So I'll ask the board again, is there any further board commentary or question? Director Freeman.
I want to really thank you, Henry, for that, like, hardened analysis of what's going on. Something that we talk about a lot in software development is the idea that people will try to take a social problem and solve it with a piece of software, with a technical solution. And this is something that, I mean, I don't know if it's then there's a coincidence that we're seeing the engineering firm, engineer in the audience, engineer up here saying oftentimes that we need to be doing better post-mortem analysis, which is, it's a term it's the term that's used both in almost callously in software development, but it's a term that is very relevant here when we're talking about actual deaths. To look at each of the individual situations and try to understand what led to that situation and what could be done to prevent it. And in some cases, maybe a technological solution is a good mitigation, but in other cases, I think that there are lots of other aspects that are going into this. And so there are people who might be casually stepping over a short fence, but if somebody has a particular goal in mind and there's enough setback and various other aspects, maybe they would be willing to climb over a bigger fence. And so I really like this idea you're bringing up, that we're not really analyzing this, the emotional, social, looking at the mental complexity that's going into this, as much as we're looking into sometimes the quick fix of, well, let's just keep putting in more fences and raising the fences. Let's try to provide setbacks and various things. The level of uncaredness that people take to these cliffs is kind of dramatic to me. There was one time where I wasn't trying to look at the cliff. I was just walking along the cliff because I needed to go on a walk. And then I sat down on one of the benches. And then while I was sitting there, somebody just walks over and then they climbed over the little fence that was there in order to sit on the other side because they wanted to have the unobstructed view on the other side of the fence, I guess, while they were eating their lunch. And I sat there thinking, this is just so casual for this person. I bet she does this every day. And the idea that people are in this situation of just not thinking that the cliff is dangerous and ways to mark that. And so on that level, I think sometimes maybe big fence can do that, but also maybe a different color on something. Signage doesn't necessarily always do it, particularly because sometimes we're trying to balance the issue of a sign of what it looks like how horrible it might look or how sad it might look. Versus what it is, but being able to try to make something so that it has this kind of coating where you glance at it and you can understand that it is as scary as it should be, that can be useful. And so I think that we need to have more of these psychological thought processes going into the solutions. So.
I mean, can I just ask, to be a little provocative,
well,
did you talk to that person? I mean, if you are focused on psychology, did you speak to her?
So I have not. I think that's a very fair point about that. But also, I will say that I'm not standing in your way of setting up the fence. I'm another person in the audience who is asking you to think about this type of solution.
Well, I definitely think about it all the time. Actually, a ton. It's just, it's not as though these things are quick fixes. It's the psychological piece is, I don't even know where you begin to fix that or change that. I mean, and you just brought up an anecdote that you chose not to, which is completely your prerogative. But I don't think it's either or. I think that the psychological is nearly impossible to try to change. I mean, how do we change people from, how you change people in general is a really hard thing. And again, I'm a little defensive on the things we're trying to do because it's really hard. These are not quick fixes. You would think that 74 properties would be changed after one death, but it's 14 and you still have obstinates. So talking about psychology is interesting, but it gets me kind of frustrated, to be blunt, because okay, then what? We bring in an expert and then what?
I guess
We're gonna go like brainwash people with a pill? I mean, I
guess the issue that I take here is that in some sense, so the agenda item that we have here today doesn't really, to me, even feel like it is our district's position. And so you challenge me, you say, have I looked at the psychology of this? Because maybe there's this idea that this is also my job to look into this matter. When I look at the powers that we have, and I then look at the solution that we have, I don't really understand, I guess, why it is that rather than sitting here and working on the parking issues, or the community center issues, or any of the things that we actually are being paid to do, we have a bunch of staff and a bunch of board members here in order to look at this issue. And so I am happy to, because I think our district should be involved in those discussions. I'm happy to have this happen, but I also think that it is, I don't know, maybe a little bit asking too much to challenge the fact that I think that the county should be doing something. I think it's the county's job to be doing something. And then you say, well, I should have done it. Okay, maybe I should be doing everything, but that's not how this works. The county has things that it does, and there are things that we do over here. And so when I look at this, when I look what the county's doing, I feel like it's incomplete. I feel like there's a level of trying to check off a box. And there's something called the, which I brought up at our board before, and I brought it up on this issue before. But there's something called the politician's syllogism. And it's the idea that there's something that we don't like, and we have to do something about it. And so this is something that we can do about it. Therefore, we must do this. And so when I hear you say that, like, well, there's this thing, how would we ever solve that? We can never do that. So let's stare at this. But I'm asking the question, I guess, have we looked at that? Have we actually, like, have we done that? And to this point where we actually feel like we've put in as much thought on the psychology as we put in on the engineering thought? I haven't seen it. But so I guess I'm always a little bit frustrated at the idea that that the time is being spent on these things at our board level when it's essentially a presentation from the county on what you were doing. So I don't know. That's where I am on this. I'm not trying to stop you. I haven't even showed up to the county board meetings. But you've come here in order to, I guess, get our opinion on the things that you're doing. I wasn't here when the 8-point plan was presented. I was at a wedding of a friend, one of the very few meetings of this district I've ever missed. So I wasn't here to provide the feedback then. But now you're here again, providing an update on it. I figured I would, and it was even prompted by someone in the audience. I figured I would provide that feedback on it. And that's what I think. So. Great. You don't like the fact that I'm providing feedback because I'm not doing it myself. That's a little weird. So
well, I'm all for the feedback. It's interesting to me.
All right, Director Brand.
Well, I think that we have all sat through a lot of discussions about this, and we've heard a lot from members of the public. I know you, Supervisor Capps, have as well. This is clearly a topic that brings out a lot of passions because it is such a tangible issue. You feel like you can hold it in your hand, that we want to see people not die, right? And we also care deeply about our views. We care deeply about the way our community is. The thing that I just really wanted to close with was something that you mentioned, Supervisor Capps, and I think that I will be channeling former Director Bob Geis, because this quote, I think, is from Deming, which is that it is very difficult, if not impossible, to measure prevention. And I think that we as policymakers have to remember that whether it's this issue that we grapple with or anything else that we grapple with, if we're trying to prevent something happening and we do something to test it, it's going to be very hard to measure what we have prevented. And so I think that because of that, there is this rightful feeling that this is not always going to be the scientific sort of hypothesis, test it sort of way that many of us, if you come from a science background, are used to. But I do think it's important for us to remember that and to give all of us a little bit of grace of the fact that we are doing something in what we're doing, whether it's with education or what the county is doing, that is trying to do something. Whereas to me, as someone who's lived here for a long time, it kind of felt like for a long time that wasn't happening, right? So I just really appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming back for a second time to hear what people think. So thank you.
Anytime.
All right, any other board members? I'll share. I'm thankful that you came. I'm excited to see these new bullet points on the twice per year measurements that bluff top property owners are required. I'm also excited there is a pre-approved safety fence design just to help speed things along, as well as this California Senate bill. I'll be looking into that. I wasn't familiar with that until today. So a lot of great new information here. I want to give a special thank you to I believe you said it was Chasen's mother who's, involved in the education process. That can be super hard, but I feel like that's an incredibly effective strategy for young people at UCSB to see from the Gaucho FYI. So that's a great partnership. And I'm glad that we have a few more tangible things beyond like what we've seen in the last 12 months of the fence and the lighting and improvements like that, that we have more of those tangible solutions to look at. Like I said last year, it's going to take all of these solutions in order to get us closer to this prevention level that we won't even notice anymore. Isla Vista will still have its accidents. Hopefully there's fewer and fewer near the ocean, near the bluff. But Isla Vista will always be a place where young people try new things, and that's going to be a hard thing to change. I don't think there's going to be a 1 year or a 10-year change of Isla Vista's character as far as trying new things. But can we make it safer for more people? I think this is attempting that. I think there's a lot of genuine efforts in here. So thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing these updates. And I'm glad that our two entities are working together where we can, where our strong suit is, where your strong suit is. So we can try to make the community a little bit safer for more kinds of people, more kinds of guests to Isla Vista, and more kinds of residents of Isla Vista. So yeah, those are my comments. Don't have any questions at this point. So thanks for coming. All right, I'll conclude that item and move on to item 4.4, the rental housing mediation program staff report and RFP.
All right, so a long time coming, getting our mediation program restructured and upgraded. So I'll let Sydney present this one.
Sounds good, thank you. Well, I'm really excited to bring this update to the board just so that we can move forward and bring these changes to the community. I think it's really relevant to this topic in terms of tenant rights and working with landlords and building those relationships. So that's what we want to do. So I'll just jump right in. The first slide captures all of the feedback that I heard when we presented the data for the mediation program for the last year. So just kind of a reminder, we talked about wanting to rebrand the program just so that it's more universally understood, offer resources and mediation forums in Spanish, just an overall kind of update, a revamp, expanding support and outreach to neighbors, something we haven't done necessarily in the past. Ensuring that we have both Isla Vista and Santa Barbara related information on our website and available to residents. And more education and support around habitability issues, just overall a big focus on education. So with that, I'll go over a breakdown of what that would look like and what's presented in the RFP. So we are looking at separating the positions out. So a mediator and a legal advisor. So one person is essentially focused on mediation in that realm of education, managing, conflict, drafting mediation agreements, educating all parties in their mediation. And then they would also collaborate with the legal advisor on hosting different educational workshops and webinars, but that will be their primary focus. and then a strong community presence. I think that was something that was lacking a little bit previously with our program. And then in terms of the legal advisor, they're really just focused on providing expert legal guidance and advice for both tenants, landlords, and homeowners.
Sorry, just can't hear and see it.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I'm just gonna have her behind John.
This person can also review legal documents in terms of like rental agreements and eviction notices, prepare educational materials. It's nice to work in our community engagement department, work closely with somebody who has this knowledge and experience to create these materials that we can share out in both English and Spanish. And then a big focus on educational workshops and seminars. I know Supervisor Katz talked about those like tenant listening sessions, things like that. So bringing more of that to our community and just supporting program outreach efforts. So, and both maintaining records. So here is a breakdown of what we would get with this program with $10,000. So you'll see a breakdown at the lowest scale with the 75 to 175. Outlined, and then below that is the top of our range of $100 to $200. So this averages out monetarily, and dividing it does not average out hours wise, if that makes sense. So like the mediator is looking at like 2 hours a week, while the legal advisor is at 0.85 hours a week. Granted, they will accumulate these hours as it's not an every week situation, but we would have plenty for them to do in regards to updating forms and educational materials and seminars and things outside of just things we do. And then the next slide breaks down a budget overview of 19,000. Same situation, top of the range, lower end of the range, and divided up exactly evenly.
19,000 is how much we have in our fund balance for this program. So it's like to spend that to zero.
And then, yeah, this is just a timeline that's outlined in the RFP, but we're hoping to get applications open this week, tomorrow, essentially, if this is approved. The deadline would be they'd have 3 weeks. We would review and have interviews and hopefully have them start November 4th.
Wow.
Quick turnaround, we're ready to go. And that's it, but happy to answer any questions or thoughts that people have.
All right, thank you for that report. Director Brandt.
So this budget is for November of this year through June 30th of next year. Do we know what the like projected yearly cost would be?
We don't have that yet.
You don't have it yet, okay. And the difference between the 10,000 and 19,000 is just a question of policy preference of how much we want to put into it.
Do you want to spend the whole reserve or not at this point? Because we've had that reserve since 2018 and we've been spending it down every year, but we only spend 1,000 a year or so. So this would, and I think part of it is because we don't have the legal advising set up. So and that's like the hot demand service. And so with this, I could imagine us needing potentially more. I mean, we'll come back to the board if we need to, but that is like the top service that we weren't providing before that we would be now.
And you touched on this in your presentation, but can you explain a little bit more what the legal advisor does and how that relates to the feedback we've heard?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times we get questions that don't require mediation, but the mediator has to essentially remain black and white, for lack of a better word. And so they can't provide legal advice and then down the road also provide mediation. It's one or the other. So this way somebody could come, ask some questions, get their advice, get their questions answered, eviction notices read or explained, and then also utilize mediation. So they don't have to pick and choose. They can have both.
Thank you for that. Any other board questions at this time? Yes.
As I'm remembering, one of the reasons we weren't spending very much of our reserves on this is that we did not have a great deal of call for mediation.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of mediation calls, but we get legal advising calls, which you couldn't do.
So are we reflecting that in this budget, that the disparity between the two? Because it still seems like maybe we're putting more into mediation when maybe we should put more into legal advice.
We've seen an uptick in mediation requests, at least this summer. But yeah, I mean, I think it is definitely an as needed basis. I mean, we only spent from 2020 to 2024, $6,100 on this program, at least from what I have.
Yeah, no, I remember that it was quite underutilized.
Yeah. I mean, the budget is the sum, the 19,000. So we'll see how it breaks down. And then when it's budget season, we'll be able to come back with a more specific, like, oh, it's 60-40, it's 50-50, whatever.
And then would we anticipate that we would create any products of legal advice so that we would have facts or, Q&As posted somewhere?
We have some already. That's something Sydney worked on.
And that's something we would maybe amplify and develop more of a library.
Yeah, definitely. I think just like we talked about a glossary of terms, even just like understanding what falls into habitability issues, like what does that look like? Or, having like a flow chart, so like all these educational materials, like who to go to for what and what your rights are. So definitely amplifying that and building that out, because I'd love to have more of a resource database and library of resources.
We also have like a roommate agreement, which is not a legal document, more on the mediation side, but that's
a psychological document.
Psychological. But we can move into things like, if you want to have a sublease or agreement, like off the shelf, things like that too. So there's a lot of demand for a lot of different stuff here. So
well, I would be in favor of funding it at a higher level.
Director Brand.
I was just going to ask, because you brought up the roommate agreement. So with the program as it has been operating, I thought I recall that most of our requests are roommate to roommate disputes and not roommate landlord disputes. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, and the ones that can even get resolved are mainly those, because a lot of times landlords don't want to mediate.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like if they don't want to mediate? They just don't respond.
Nothing happens. Yeah,
Doesn't happen.
I mean, yeah. How do they not respond? Do they not respond? Yes. Do they respond saying I'm not interested? That yes is too, but usually no response.
And there's no legal obligation that they participate.
No, not in our program. I mean, I think there is in the small claims court. I don't want to be wrong here, but I think if you're going to small claims, you have to try to mediate, but that's like immediately before your court date, not having participated in this.
And I would imagine that would be where the legal advisor element would come in more so too.
And the legal advisor too, I know one of the things that we did one year that I thought was really valuable was the Know Your Rights workshop. Mm-hmm. And then subsequently, I think there was some concern about what you were talking about. If you're mediating, can you also provide advice? Is that something, the workshops, that the legal advisor could help work on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you.
Director Freeman.
Yeah, one thing I think can be useful here is to look at what it is that we want, and then to try to look at how we can try to get there. Obviously, right? But I'm sorry. I'm clearly having a very stuttery today. But here with this program, this is another thing where I think that looking at why it is that people aren't doing the things we want them to do is really interesting. So I mean, there was a story that I had, right, just a few months ago, where maybe it would have been useful for me to be in mediation with my landlord, as opposed to the situation I was that started to go down past, and maybe both of us are with lawyers. It's all resolved, but the idea that there's this person who has a lot of power over your living condition, and there are people who are offering to help in a way that seems like it escalates things, but they're not really in a position to back you up after that point, because they can't actually make the landlord do anything, and they can't even make the landlord show up to the meeting. But you've now escalated the situation through them and potentially even lost them as the ability to then get legal advice from them later. I almost feel like I would never recommend their current, if we get with the new thing where we got more people, at least you don't lose that ability. But I don't think I would ever really recommend anyone even comes to the Alva Community Service District for the mediation program as it's currently set up. I think we can fix that. I keep thinking that there are opportunities for us to either increase the power or increase the level of comfortableness on all the parties. Something that when the Santa Barbara Rental Housing Mediation Program had given presentations back in during the AB3 days, and they also were in a position where they weren't able to force anyone to come to the table. They were saying that they had lots of landlords come to the table because they spent a lot of time working with and talking to landlords and making the landlords feel comfortable on the other side. And if you can make it so that if we can figure out how to make it so that something similar happens, where we've got where the landlords actually maybe like us enough in order to be willing to think that we're going to help de-escalate a situation rather than cause some kind of weird escalation. Maybe we can actually make it something where everyone wants to come to the table. Another thing, though, on the power side, of the escalation side, when we've talked about graffiti abatement, we've talked about let's put in an ordinance that requires people to let us make modifications to things, or let's make it there's fines associated with not doing things, or why can't we do the same thing here? I feel like we brought this up occasionally, and it's like, oh, we can't do something here, but we can somehow with graffiti abatement say that if you don't do this thing, we're going to start fining you. Can't we make it so that if you don't show up to the to a mediation, we fine you? We can't arbitrate, we can't force a result, but can we at least say that you have to show up to a meeting? And I would love to spend more time actually trying to explore the solution space that we have in order to try to build either a more powerful program or a more useful one. But barring that, the drift into supporting and really powerfully doing legal advising, I think would be really useful. I think we need a lot of people wanting to do that. So
I think just to answer that, like, I think there's going to be a lot more capacity to work with landlords that we didn't have before, having 2 staff versus 1. And I also think that in terms of like getting people to understand why their landlord isn't showing up for mediation, knowledge is power. They can go to the legal advisor, understand their rights, and then continue to advocate for what it is that their tenant rights. So I think that it is a step in the right direction, but
no, this is great. I'm not saying this.
No, but I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, if anything, I mean, I would love to try to figure out, like, you need more resources to make this great. Like, I want to give more resources towards this program. I think this is one of the things when like you think of like the systemic issues that are occurring here in Isla Vista, the power imbalance between the permanent landlords and the temporary students, often who are their first time renters, it's brutal power imbalance. And anything that we can do to try to fix that, I think drastically makes changes on things that are going here on Vista. And so I'm perfectly happy spending lots of our money on this sort of thing if we can figure out how to make it successful and something that people actually want to use. And right now we just have this issue where it's like, well, like people really want the exact thing that we're able to offer. Maybe we can try to expand. Like I'd love to focus and fix.
We're definitely focusing on it now and more to improve it. And I think, like what Sydney said, by have the mediator as a separate person, they can go build relationships. I think we actually got one of our first requests for mediation from a landlord this summer. It took 7 years, but we're building that trust. And I know that they at least found our program helpful for themselves because they get the tenant complaints and then they just send them to us to resolve them. So I think we have the opening to
they found us
to do more.
You get like a statement from them on how useful we are. They can go on the website.
Right.
Put out a press release.
Right. No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, a feedback loop is something we've never had before for this program. So I think that that's a huge piece of this and that revamp, and then actually taking that feedback and making the changes in real time. So I see a lot of potential for this program.
Director Deschler.
Yay me. Thank you, Sydney, for this presentation. I love that you've kind of brought some order and some structure to the program. And I'm excited because I know between you and our community engagement team that we can really promote this. And I think that has been maybe part of an issue is having a good program, but not maybe necessarily packaging it in a way that resonates with people. And I love that Jonathan, you mentioned that a property owner reached out about this mediation. I wanted to ask you, because we're talking about budget, my favorite topic. I wanted to ask you, does this allow, so we had this issue this summer with, evictions going on. Does this, will there be an opportunity for this program to kind of ebb and flow so that maybe if we have more demand, that we could increase funding to accommodate the increased demand? I don't know if somebody asked that question or if you addressed that.
Yeah, we can do that. And like I said, we know the template here, we might use the hours differently for sure on that side. But yes, if a big event happened and we were anticipating it, the board could absolutely say, let's put in $5,000 to make it available to be used during this period for this current conflict. So definitely possible.
And then the other question I wanted to ask is $200, is that for a legal advisor? Is that market rate? I mean, that
It's
seems
low
quite
bono.
low to me. And is that realistic?
Low bono. That's the term we were, that's the term that our current mediator, who's an attorney, worked out with us, and we worked to figure out that price.
Yeah,
Usually it would be like 500 would be market price, but we can't do that.
Yeah. I just think we might want, I mean, we want to make sure that, you know, I mean, obviously we're not going to pay $500 an hour, but that seems quite low to me. So that may need to be looked at. And then I just wanted to mention something. I was at a conference last week and I was talking with my fellow government relations directors from other UC campuses. And the UCLA campus did a presentation on a program that is run out of the Luskin Center for, I want to say it's public affairs. And it is a tenant, it's called the Tenant Power Toolkit. And it's quite comprehensive. I'll send you a link to it. But one of the things that they were talking about is that this group at the Luskin Center has created an AI tool that allows people who are facing eviction or have rent debt or other issues with landlords to be able to go into this data system and type in, you know, put in their put in information, be able to their zip code, that kind of thing, be able to generate forms for themselves, legal forms. It's a great toolkit. And when I looked at some of the things that you are under the legal advisor providing, I realized a lot of what is out there might be really great to link on our website. So I'll send it to you, but it sounded like an amazing tool and could possibly be of use to people in our community.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Director Brand.
I just wanted to say thank you to Director Dessler for bringing that tool up, because I know in speaking with the Santa Barbara Tenants Union folks, that is a major component of what they do, is helping write these letters. And so I hope that we can incorporate that in however the program looks. But my last question is, do we have any flexibility on the wage? I mean, I would hate to see us go out to RFP and then not get anything back and have to start over.
If we don't get anything, we'll adjust it and we'll just have different budget, or we'll come back with a different budget request. So I guess we'll know by the next board meeting how things are going with applications.
So I guess, do we have flexibility to raise it now?
If you want to raise it now, for sure, we can change it.
And I know that would mess with the budget, but I'm just, you know, would we be able to do that within the 19,000 surplus?
So it would be less hours and more pay per hour.
Yes. Or yeah, I mean, I can't run the numbers in real time right now, like how it'll change, but we definitely could.
Or just give you authority to balance those two out.
Yeah, we can work. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'll ask if there's any public comment on this item. Yes.
First of all, Sydney, you're awesome. Great work with this. So it's a necessary tool here in Isla Vista to have this mediation program. How you can bring somebody to mediation, I'm going to say it, subpoena. The legality behind that, I'm not a legal expert, but you can probably subpoena somebody. Now, one resource that we have here in town that may be very helpful in this, and I don't know if you all reached out to her ever, is Robin Hunander over at the Legal Aid.
We work with her.
She's fantastic at these kind of things. But the big issue is getting somebody to the negotiation table. And unfortunately, you know, there are people that can say, no, I don't want to do this. But if you make it to where you have a failure to appear, that might change minds a little bit. It's a little draconian. I'm not going to say it isn't. I don't like to see, heavy intrusion of law into something that can be handled in a civil manner. But sometimes people act in an uncivil manner. And that is something to consider on this. Maybe finding some legal route to where the attendance to mediation is mandatory. I don't know how you're going to do that. But I think that's an avenue to explore or consider. Because the only way to get mediation to happen is to have people at the table. The other thing too, the advisor versus the mediator, you definitely have to keep those roles separate, because it is a conflict of interest to have the same person doing those two different jobs, and it's particularly in a particular case. So that separation has to be made very clear. And by making it very clear, you also have the landlord say, oh, okay, well, this isn't just siding with the tenant, because that's a big belief with a lot of landlords. They think that you guys are siding with the tenants. It's like, no, you're trying to approach this in a neutral manner to get people to talk. What are the issues? But there's this mentality involved. We get into the wonderful talk of psychology, but there's this mentality involved that landlords do have, that you're siding with the tenant. And I know that's not the case. I clearly know this for a fact, but some people don't. They have it in their head like, oh, they're going to stick up for these guys. But I think exploring an avenue of mandatory attendance to mediation is something you may want to consider. As, like I said, as draconian as that may sound, but something to look at.
Comments? Yes.
Yeah, I'm all very supportive of this process, and I'm glad to be able to hear more about it. And we should just keep in touch as things move along. But also too, I just want to make sure that this notice of violation is a known resource for is it known for everybody, that you can just go on the county website? It's like a simple Google Doc, and it's anonymous.
We've been using it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And that whoever gets hired is well aware of it, because some things might be able to be taken care of that way.
That's
Mold, things that are clear violations. They'll be out here. They'll send a building inspector out here. So I just hope that gets utilized.
Yeah, we'll make that a good part of it. Is you have advice, mediation, report.
Yeah, and the tenant doesn't have to be the one. I mean, like a parent or co-signer, it doesn't, if someone, for whatever reason, I know the tenants are intimidated a lot, but it doesn't have to necessarily be the tenant. If a parent or somebody wants to do that, they're welcome to.
We've had some parents request mediation this summer for their kids.
I bet. Yeah.
And I have helped people do their reports to help get leverage, and it does help.
Great. Super.
All right, seeing no further public comment, I'll come back to the board. Any further board commentary, questions? Director Freeman?
If I essentially report my landlord to the county for mold issues, don't I end up just getting kicked out of my apartment because they're going to have to tear all the walls down and clear out all the mold? I mean, that was something I kind of remember when we were doing the AB3 meetings, and code enforcement from the county came and gave a presentation to us, because we were asking all the people, and they actually said that they weren't doing proactive code enforcement because of that issue. It's like, I'm wondering, is this something that's being recommended as more of a threat escalation? I considered the idea of if they're not going to be nice to me, well, then I'm going to cause them problems with this building, but I'm gonna have to leave anyway. So I just don't really understand the.
I mean, the phone calls that we get oftentimes, people are in really dire, ridiculous situations that really need to be, attention needs to be, their toilet hasn't been working for a month, or this shower's been flooding for God knows how long. And then oftentimes it's that they are, put out without any sort of housing or hotel, that type of stuff. But I mean, I personally haven't heard of it escalating any issues, and rather it just brings things to a higher level. So
I was curious about that, because I feel like this. People here, and actually maybe not all of you heard, but the flooding issues in my apartment were to the point where I would come back from a few days gone, and the entire bottom floor of my apartment, the carpet would be all damp from a toilet that was not sort of thing. That's what it was, from a sink that had overflown from an upstairs person who was showering, and all of their water was flowing into my apartment and everything. And and there's sort of there's the mold is bad in like places that can exist, not like unisys, but like I would never try to do anything because I would be concerned about what would happen. So,
For fear of retaliation
Yeah.
or, yeah.
well, not for retaliation, just how do you fix something?
No, I mean, I think that.
Now what's
that's
gonna happen
fair.
is somebody here's gonna report my own department on me. 'Cause I forget it 4 months. But I think that's fair. The thing that I'm trying to understand though is that like code enforcement has actually come and told us that this is something that they did not proactively do, so.
Yeah, that's news to me. I mean, I haven't-
Well, I think all, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think all code enforcement is not done proactively. It's only done on a
Yeah.
complaint basis. So
Right.
that's where this comes in because it helps you get leverage if you threaten to do it. That's how I've advised people to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked back through my text messages to find the situation. It was a tenant who, there was some construction happening in her apartment. And so she was sleeping in another unit and she found in that other unit, it was very infested with mold. And so really her resolution was she wanted to get rehoused. And I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding of the tenant law is you do have to provide rehousing if you're doing construction or rehab on inside someone's unit. And that wasn't happening, but being able to have the mold as leverage and code enforcement as leverage is something that helps get to a solution. And I felt, kind of to your point, Jay, earlier about like our own program, I felt almost like a traitor to not be able to say, hey, I think you should come to our program because we can help, because I didn't think that it would in that situation. I think with a legal advisor though, I would have sent them to the program.
Any other board comments? All right, is there any motion on this report? Yes.
I would move that we approve a budget of $19,000 and let staff determine the balance between hourly wage and hours worked and hire some people to get this program started.
I'll second.
All right, we have the motion by Topliff and the second by Scholes. Is there any public comment on this motion? Seeing none. May I have a roll call vote on this motion?
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Topliff,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Freeman, Craig,
Yes.
Teschler,
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
All right, this motion passes 7-0-0-0. And now we'll move on to item 4.5, the IV Safe agenda preview for the October meeting.
Okay, it's mostly a continuation of the last agenda because we didn't get to 90% of the agenda last time since Deltopia took up such a large portion. So the agenda for this IV Safe is going to be just a small amount going over the new health and wellness vending machine. We're going to have our ribbon cutting ceremony at 11:30 a.m. next Wednesday to kick it off. And so we're excited. It's here. It's almost loaded. And we're just waiting for some electrical issues to be worked out. So that's a big item, and it kind of came out of IV Safe in terms of the connections made. So that's nice. We're going to talk about road and mobility safety and go over our draft reports with everybody there. This is one, again, you might have remembered, like, we talked about this so long ago. It's just been a long time since the last IV Safe. So the peer-to-peer program for neighborhood noise concerns will be floated to see what people's appetites around that are. And then finally, this is something that came up at our debrief of Deltopia was, could we get together like a retreat sort of thing of the key individuals and agencies to kind of sketch out our ideal planning for the 2025 event. And then finally, we'll do a quick update on the letter that you all received today, just an information sharing of this change since it's been a topic. That's about it. Then we'll be we have already our tentative dates for 2025 that we'll be sharing with everybody, and we'll keep it rolling. And we don't have future agenda items right now, so any ideas would be appreciated.
All right, is there any board questions or comments at this time? Director Dashley.
Yeah. Sometime, could you put that back up there, Jonathan? My
Oh, yeah.
comment is that, sometimes less is more. And I think there's way too much on this agenda to really, I just think there's way too much. I guess, I would recommend, I think the road sidewalk mobility, that's good, but I would put the peer-to-peer program, I would move that. It just, this group doesn't seem to be able to do anything in a short amount of time. And it seems like focusing on, I think there should be something on Halloween, perhaps, and Deltopia for sure. But I don't know. I guess I worry that sometimes we're trying to do too much and then we don't do justice to the topics that we have on there. That's just me. Yeah.
I can put a Halloween update, but I will say that there's nothing much for the group to do, I guess, on Halloween, but we could get a update on what's going on.
I don't think there's anything to do, but I think just an update would be good because it's going to be what, 2 weeks, 2 weeks before Halloween, and we've not had any update on Halloween, right? Except for maybe the IV Community Network. Is that a value? Maybe that's not a value. Anyways, I mentioned that, and I just, because we had a lot on the agenda for the last meeting, and we just didn't get to it, and you do a really good job moderating this and getting these people to move along. But boy, we get distracted and talk a lot.
Director Brand.
I was the one who asked for the peer-to-peer program to address neighborhood noise concerns, and I am fine with bumping that to, I guess, what would be the January meeting. Is that right?
January meeting. And that's usually been the least packed agenda.
Yeah, I think that'll be fine to move it to then. And I agree that it would be good to have a Halloween update. However, whenever this gets brought up, I always have to get on my soapbox and remind people that Halloween in Isla Vista is not really a thing anymore. And weekends like 4th of July are way bigger safety concerns. So even though it has loomed large in the past, I think it's because of our efforts that we even neglect to put it on the agenda to talk about because we've solved it.
Well, that's nice.
Well, it'll be a shorter agenda. I'm sure people will appreciate it.
Well, okay,
right.
so now I feel badly.
I think it's fine. I think it's
So,
good.
I mean, I guess it's fine to put it on the agenda. If we don't get to it, we don't get to it, right? So, you know what? Just put the peer-to-peer on there, I guess.
No, I think the road and sidewalk safety will probably actually take up double the time it says. And so,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
and some of these people have seen this, but a lot of them haven't. So
I think it's a good part of our 22 days outreach to have this.
yeah, and it's safety. It's one of our approaches that there's safety beyond the traditional safety that people think of.
Yeah, like one of our public commenters brought up today.
One more comment I'd like to make is on the, okay, where did it go? It was here a second ago. Oh, Deltopia 2025 planning. I would say the desired outcome is to discuss interests, but land on an actual date for meeting. I mean, just like, let's get people, let's get it, who's going to be there, and let's get a date. Let's see if we can get it scheduled. Put people on the spot and get it locked in, because we're already, oh my gosh, we're in October. And
right.
we know we lose. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I would say we start planning pretty much now.
Yeah. So let's and schedule meeting. Yeah, I think that would be good.
I'm good. No, it's good at it.
All right, I'll go to the public. If there's any public comment on this agenda item. I see none at this time, so I'll just return to the board. Is there any further board discussion on this item? We don't need to make a motion, correct?
You're good.
Okay. Well, I will conclude 4.5, and this will conclude our discussion and action items. Now we'll move on to reports. We have item 5.1, reports from members of the board. Do any board members wish to report? Director Brandt.
I had a chance to attend Clean Air Day at the Isla Vista Community Center and watch Sydney gave a great report on everything that we've been working on mobility related, as well as hear from the UCSB Community Emergency Response Team on preparing for climate change induced natural disasters. And just thought it was a really great event and was really happy to be there.
Thank you for the update. Director Deschler.
Thank you for not saying you're on mute. So I got an email today that from the County Public Works that 6500 block will be of Cardell Road will be closed from October 14th to the 17th. From 7 a.m. to 4:30, and there will be a detour for bicyclists. I just didn't know if IVCSD had gotten that information.
We got it, and we're going to be noticing the public about it.
Awesome.
Any other board members? All right, I'll share a report from my role as a commissioner on the Goleta Library Advisory Commission. This will be a little bit longer than usual. We met yesterday, October 7th. We had regular daily business of the library. So the library has hired its last part-time library assistant for the book van. So the book van is at full staff capacity, which is great, ready for the fall. There are open recruitments to the library for the supervising librarian, as well as a library assistant at Goleta Valley Library and at the Bealton Library, if people are looking for work. Now move on to the regular daily business of the library. So of interest to this community are some of the grants. I've talked before about the Zip Book grants. The city of Goleta will be awarded their $20,000 grant for the Zip Book fund. They just recently got that. So details regarding the award amounts and the program start dates are still forthcoming, but Zip Books is basically the program in which a community member, if they're looking in the Goleta Library catalog, can go into a Zip Book portal, which looks very familiar to Amazon, request a title that Goleta Library does not currently own, have that title be sent to the individual's home. They can read the book at their leisure and then return it to the library, and there it will be added to the permanent collection. So this is a great grant process because it puts collection development in the hands of the user, which is a really powerful tool, something that I think is excellent for engagement reasons and literacy reasons. Now the next bigger grant, we heard in the past that the city won in October 2023, to be specific, the Building Forward Library Facilities Improvement Program grant. Their grant award amount is for $4.2 million. The big news is that this will require major construction to happen on the City of Goleta Library, which will close the library for a number of years. The project must be completed by June 30th, 2027. So the City of Goleta is moving very quickly to try and get these funds in motion and get things happening. This was discussed at the, I think, October 1st, City of Goleta Council meeting. I did not attend that. I still need to watch that and do my homework and catch up. I suggest folks watch that recording if they haven't and they are interested in this process. They haven't approved a specific plan of how they will mitigate library services, but that last city council meeting, they decided on asking staff to look at three specific options. So the first option is to provide modified library services from the Goleta Community Center, postponing some improvement plans they have in that building. The second option is to provide modified library services from a new modular classroom to be sited on the Goleta Community Center campus. And then the third would be to rent or lease a commercial or institutional space, which would cost them more money. So they are looking at those three primary options. Those will be presented at the November 19th, 2024 City Council meeting. So we as commissioners were asked to provide feedback kind of behind the scenes, not behind the scenes, but with the city librarian, Elizabeth Salcido, and the neighborhood services director, Joanne Plummer. So I know that all these topics are of interest to this committee. So please reach out to me or reach out to these folks directly if you want. I can provide their contact information. I'll be open to hearing from anyone who's interested. Yeah, that's the main meat of the update. I know there's a lot more I could talk about, but those are super important. So as library services will change for Isla Vistans in the way that if they are visiting the city library, the book ban services will still be the same as far as we can tell right now. That'll be a different conversation in their next budget cycle for the city of Goleta. So these are all things that are kind of like not final decisions, but wanted to make the board aware. That concludes my report at this time. Are there any other reports? All right, I'll move on to 5.2, reports from standing and ad hoc committees. I see none, so I'll move on to report from district council.
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, I'll just say I'm very happy to be here and see all of you. It's been a while, so hello. I will say that after a slower, more budget-focused summer, the district has definitely ramped up in terms of workload. I've been working very closely with Jonathan and Sydney and Maya and Jenna on a lot of various projects, some of which I can't talk about yet in open session, but I will say the ones that I can are the facility use agreement, amending that to more align with the board's most recently adopted fee schedule. So we're getting that in place. We are also working on the tree policy for Ivy Beautiful, which will go back to the policy committee before it comes to the board. But a lot of stuff going on. And so, yeah, it's been pretty good.
All right, thank you for that report. And now report from our general manager and staff.
Do you guys have any reports before I go?
I'll just share
Yeah.
super quick that if anyone would like to share, we are hiring a data analyst intern, a government administrative intern, and a dirt rider. So 3 positions that are open until next Wednesday. We have received a whopping 12 applications for the data analyst positions. That just goes to show how many people are interested, and 6 for government and 1 for dirt rider. So the more push, the better.
Nice. Check out the bus stop on the corner of El Colegio and Camino Pescadero. The bus benches are in progress of being painted. It looks really good. I'm so excited to see it finished.
Yeah, I just saw yesterday. It looks really good.
so good.
Some other things going on. The safety stations are officially back. They came back a little later this year, but they're back as of last weekend. So we're happy to see those. We also worked out the favorable rate for the payment of the service for the program. So we're in good shape on the safety stations. And one thing Maya is working on that's related to safety is she's putting together a survivors retreat with our interpersonal violence investigator. It's this weekend. Or in 3 days. That's not this weekend. It's coming up. We did get a notice of extensive construction that'll interrupt our programming at the community center from County General Services, and we're meeting about it tomorrow to try to resolve. Been doing a lot of meetings on finding funding for our mobility plan now. So, it's not done yet, but we need to start getting money for it. So I went to a conference last week. I had a couple meetings. I had a meeting with the county staff this Monday on an education grant, because a lot of what we're going to need to do is education based. So I've been spending a lot of time starting to look at bringing in money for our mobility and parking. And also, I told you I've been going to this management training every couple weeks. I missed one. I don't know how I missed it. I think I had it for tomorrow, but it was last week. I'll get the slides. But an important one coming up. It was about planning, which we do really well here. But the next one coming up is orientation for board members, new board members. So I want to get that all squared away and done nice for our 3 new board members coming in. And then I have to report on the public record act requests we get. We got one, we get it every year. They request our staff salaries and the names attached to them. So, Transparent California and all that. So we'll be on there. Besides that, everything is running pretty smoothly. And yes, a lot of things I'll mention are in closed session. So we'll talk about it then.
All right, thank you for that report. And now we will move into closed session, everyone. Council, could you please read us into closed session?
Yes, we have several items today. The first is item 6.1, general manager evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1. Item 6.2 is public employee discipline dismissal release pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1. Item 6.3 is conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Sections 54954.5C and 54956.9D1. Case name is 238 Serrano Properties LLC et al. Versus the State of California et al. Los Angeles County Superior Court, case number 24 STCB 01214. I think the numbering's off. Item 6.4 is conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. Property is 970 and 976 Embarcadero Del Mar in Isla Vista and the Pardal Solar Lot. Agency negotiators are Marcos Aguilar, Board President, Carrie Topliff, Vice President, Jay Freeman, Board Member, Bob Geis, Consultant, Jonathan Aboud, General Manager, Sydney Castaneda, Assistant General Manager, and Jamie Traxler, District Counsel. The negotiating parties are Isla Vista Community Services District of the County of Santa Barbara, and under negotiation are the price and terms of payment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Director Brandt.
I will be recusing myself from item 6.4, which is, I think, improperly labeled as 6.3, the conference with real property negotiators, due to my employment with the County of Santa Barbara.
All right.
We're ready to go. Let's we'll do that one maybe last.
Looks great.
Are you gonna start with the first two?
Yes, we'll do those.
With the YouTube stream and the radio.
It says it's in.
Yeah, I have to drag it over to the
No,
thing.
no.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, shoot, I
screen was not sharing.
I can get it.
We're good.
I have it. I got it right here.
We're all
Yeah,
good.
we're good.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's 9 PM on the dot. Council, could you please read us out of closed session?
Yes, thank you. So the board met in closed session on item 6.1, general manager evaluation pursuant to government code section 54957B1. Discussion was had, no reportable action taken. Item 6.2, public employee discipline dismissal release pursuant to government code section 54957B1. Discussion was had, no reportable action taken. We had conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to government code sections 54954.5C and 54956.9D1 regarding 238 Serrano Properties versus the state of California, case number LA County Superior Court number 24 STCV 01214. Discussion was had, direction was provided to the the district attorney's office, and no reportable action is taken. Item 6.4, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to government code section 54956.8 regarding the properties at 970 and 976 Embarcadero Del Mar, as well as the Pardal Solar Lot. Agency negotiators were Marcos Aguilar, board president, Carrie Topliff, vice president, Jay Freeman, board member, Bob Geis, consultant, Jonathan Aboud, general manager, Sydney Castaneda, assistant general manager, and Jamie Traxler, district counsel. Negotiating parties were the Isla Vista Community Services District and County of Santa Barbara. Under negotiation was the price and terms of payment. I would like to note that Director Brandt recused himself from this conversation, but a discussion was had, direction was provided to staff, but no reportable action taken. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, council. I'll now move on to item 7, future meeting dates and future agenda items. The next regular meeting of the Board of Directors will take place on October 22nd, 2024 at 6 PM on Zoom and at the Community Room 970 Embarcadero Del Mar, Isla Vista, California. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting.